even if my body don't feel like I really want, but I did well. No, you need to take the losses and learn from that and keep going. I have cramps in my legs, so doesn't respond the way I really want. But it is what it is. We learn from that and we move forward. I know what mistakes I made in the fight and in the camp too.
Was there any part of you that got upset when he announced his retirement and you said, "Oh, I gave you the opportunity. Now you're not going to give me the opportunity back"?
Yeah, of course. I always give all his credit, no. But we need to run it back. That's why my tough when after the fight I say we need to run it back this fight because I don't feel the way I really want. I need to make this fight happen again. And it's gonna be different. I think for him to deserve all the credit, he need to give me the rematch, obviously. But he decided to retire and the rematch will be perfect for boxing. No? But it is what it is.
So Canelo Alvarez returns from a very scary surgery. He had elbow surgery. You guys know what happened. He fought Terence Crawford. He ended up losing to Terence Crawford, and then he took some time off because he had to get this elbow surgery, and he was away for quite some time. He's back in action. He's been training. He feels good. He feels ready to go. And he's already put a list of opponents that he wants to fight. But there's one thing that's bugging Canelo Alvarez. And you guys got to understand, Canelo Alvarez was the face of boxing, especially in this era, guys. He's a former 4-division champion, former 2-time undisputed super middleweight champion, and a former ring champion. Saul Canelo Alvarez is a beast. And it just luck didn't go his way when he fought Terence Crawford. He ended up losing to Terence Crawford, and he thought never in his wildest dreams did he think that when he returned back into the community of boxing that his former opponent, the guy that he last fought, would retire. You all know that Terence Crawford has subsequently retired from boxing. And I don't know if that's a forever kind of a deal because, sometimes these guys, they say they're retired and then they come back. And, so I kind of take it with a grain of salt. But, I call it as it is. If somebody says they retire, I'll do a video on it. I'll put it on my channel. But, take it with a grain of salt because you never know. These guys could always come back. And guess what? Sometimes we say money is not everything for a lot of these big fighters because it's legacy they're after. And that's more important because they have all the money in the world, right? But sometimes money does speak pretty big volumes. And if the opportunity, and if the money's right, believe me, you could bring back people from the dead. Okay, so Canelo is happy to be back, but he's kind of disappointed. He's frustrated because he thought he was going to have a rematch against Terence Crawford, and that's what he wants. Now, let's talk about it, guys. Welcome back to Duality 7X. I'm your host, Shiraz. And guys, we've got a good one for you guys. I saw this story. Mr. Versace, Rick Reno, he's incredible. He's got some unbelievable podcasts. I really dig this guy. And, he's the guy. If you guys don't know who Rick Reno is, he's got the nice mink coats, the nice big Versace glasses. He looks total mafioso, but this man knows how to dress. And he's usually with like Turkey LL Sheikh and, His Excellency and some other big power boxing promoters and brokers. And he's usually like ringside for a lot of the big main events. Now, in Rick Reno's latest podcast with Canelo Alvarez, Canelo had a lot to say, guys. He had a lot to say. And, he's not holding back. He was very, very clear. Canelo, I'm talking about, was very clear about one thing since the night he lost to Terence Crawford. And he accepted the result. He took full accountability. He said, I wasn't good enough, but I will get better. Okay? And he went off. He got his elbow surgery. He took the necessary time to heal, which obviously bugs any fighter because people don't like this, especially athletes, when they have to be out of the sport that they enjoy, playing and being a part of for so long, because that's really all they know. That's the worst thing anyone can go through, right? It's kind of like a musician not being able to sing because they just can't sing. They had some surgery or something like that, maybe. And can you imagine? You're taking away the one thing that these people know and love the most. And so Canelo was, he did what he had to do. He stepped away from boxing. He took the time that he needed to heal up, and he feels that he's ready to go. But he doesn't accept the fact, although he accepts the fact that he lost, he took full accountability for it. He vows to come back better, stronger, more articulate, more meticulous in the ring. I mean, call it as you see it, guys. This man is on a mission. But the one thing he can't accept is that the rivalry between him and Terence Bud Crawford is complete. He cannot accept that. And so when asked about it, when Rick Reno and Canelo were talking on Mr. Versace's podcast, Canelo essentially framed that Crawford's retirement is not as closure for him, but it's an unfinished ending. And one thing about Canelo, and you have to give Canelo credit where credit is due, he doesn't like to just fight for the sake of fighting. He doesn't like tune-up fights. He doesn't like, warm-up fights. Let's just get a B-class, C-class fighter in the ring, and I'll get going, and then I'm going to go for that. No, he wants the best of the best every single time, because that's what he does. He was the best of the best himself, so he doesn't want anything less. Okay, so there's no denial here. There's no excuses, but there's certainly unresolved business. And this is the thing that's pressing at Canelo Alvarez every single day in, day out. When he goes to bed, he's thinking about it. When he wakes up, he's thinking about it. And he's probably thinking, what is it going to take to bring back Terence Crawford into the ring one last time to settle that score, or to at least close the chapter, right? Canelo also admitted the fact that, Terence Crawford deserved full credit, for that fight. But he stressed that he didn't feel like himself that day, that night. And he believed that matchup demanded a second chapter. You have to give Canelo that due. Canelo's, again, he usually, when Canelo fights, there's no ambiguity. There's no I could have gone this way, could have gone that way. No. This was straight up. It looked so one-sided in some cases. I was like, something is seriously off about Canelo Alvarez. And we talked a lot about it, guys. We talked a lot about it on other videos. Although Terence Crawford is older than Canelo definitely has a lot more mileage, a lot more wear and tear on his body than Terence Crawford does. Because Canelo, he just fights, and he loves to fight. He fights a lot. And you have to understand, every fight takes away a little piece out of you. It ages you. Because there's so much that has to go in terms of ring preparation, what a fighter needs to do in terms of their nutrition, their training regimen, all the prepping and everything that they need to do just to get them to the point where they're ready to go. And the whole thing about cutting weight, increasing weight just before the weigh-ins, that's probably one of the most detrimental things any athlete could do to their body, because it puts a lot of stress and burden on the body. It's it's kind of like in an unnatural way, and this is why a lot of fighters get sick, and this is why sometimes a lot of fighters may look flat when they're fighting, and we don't see this, we don't know this. A lot of guys are going into these fights with injuries. Alex Pereira, he felt that in his fight against Magomedov, he had a broken foot, and he still won. He won that fight within the first round. You know, a lot of these guys go in there with like, you know, some kind of body trauma, some kind of injury that they may have sustained during their sparring sessions and training, but they don't talk about it. They don't go crying about it. Sometimes that stuff comes out after in the post fight, usually in the scrum or the post fight interview when Joe Rogan or any of the guys brings the fighter in and into the camera, into the frame, and then after the fight they're like, hey, what happened? What do you think happened? What went wrong? And then sometimes those are the things that come out. So anyways, guys, rematches aren't just about revenge. We get that, but they're also sometimes about confirmation. And this is why it's so important for Canelo Alvarez, at least in his opinion, to have a second chapter, because he wants to close that chapter. He felt that it was unfinished business when he went off to go through his surgery, didn't realize that Terence Crawford was going to hang it up. And so Canelo, at some point after the formalities, he didn't mince words. He said straight up, if Crawford wanted full credit, then he should have taken the rematch. And you can't say that's disrespect or anything like that. That's just from Canelo's perspective. That's his honest boxing kind of opinion. He feels very strongly about that. He feels that if he was in that situation, he would have given a rematch. So the comments left little doubt, in anyone's mind that, especially in Canelo's view, that Crawford's exit closed the door, with some kind of a definitive ending. No, that's not the case at all. And I mean, boxing, yes, has moved on. We get that. We've had a lot of beautiful fights in the world of boxing and in the world of combat sports since that epic battle between Saul and Bud. But I mean, without a rematch in the works, Canelo feels that it's unfinished business. It's a chapter that he may or may never be able to close now according to him. And he also feels very deeply that that's what he's owed, is a rematch. So look, we could talk, historically here for a second. I mean, you remember Leonard, Sugar Ray Leonard and Duran. You had, Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. Those battles that Muhammad Ali had with Joe Frazier, they were punishing. Manny Pacquiao, Marquez. I mean, guys, when elite fighters do the dance and they meet, there's always a question of timing, question of weight, question of like their form, circumstances that surrounds, there's a lot of circumstances that surround these fighters the minute they get into that ring and when they leave as well too. Right, but this is one of the things. A fighter knows what they have in terms of the tools that they have in their tool belt, the resources that are available to them. They have their strategies. But what's really frustrating for a fighter is if they can't execute something to an optimum level of their satisfaction. For instance, the timing. I talked about timing. I talked about and what about footwork and if those aren't at that level that fighter wants, it's absolutely frustrating. And so for Canelo coming out and talking to Rick Reno, he was saying that he just didn't feel himself that night. And I believe it because we all watched the fight. He looked off. Now, I'm not going to take away any credit from Terence Crawford because he was an animal. He was a complete beast in that fight. He took over. And we also have to give credit to Terence Crawford that maybe he just was that better. Okay? Canelo may have had an off night, but at the end of the day, it was a boxing fight, and Terence Crawford went in there to box, and box he did. And he outboxed Canelo Alvarez. So if Canelo was sick, if he had some kind of a cold or flu or injury, or he just wasn't feeling himself, That happens. Unfortunately, that happens because it's that one night. You're going live. You can't do a redo. The only redos that you get are in terms of rematches, and but those take time. Obviously, in this case, now I don't think there's a rematch or anything because Crawford's retired. He's retired, and a lot of things happened with Crawford since that fight. He was stripped of his WBC title. Crawford refused to pay the sanctioning, the fees associated with being a part of that organization, wearing that belt. The fees that are from the sanctioning body, and so there was a whole bunch of drama that followed with that. I mean, that just happened recently with Shakur Stevenson and with the WBC. WBC stripped Shakur Stevenson of his belt because Shakur Stevenson beat Teofimo Lopez and won the WBO super lightweight crown, and you can't have the WBC lightweight championship and then a WBO super lightweight championship. It's got to be within the same division, and that too. I think there was some issue with Shakur Stevenson not wanting to pay the fees associated with that belt. So there's a lot of weird kind of dramas that are going on with these sanctioning bodies. And then you got Zuffa Boxing, Dana White wanting to centralize everything under one umbrella. The belts stay within the organization. The fighters stay within the organization. So there's a lot of things that are happening. So the boxing community, the boxing world of sports entertainment and combat sports has subsequently changed since the last time Canelo Alvarez fought. So welcome to the new world. It is a new world, and it's going to be very, very different moving forward. And so with Crawford retiring, potentially closing the door on that rematch, it's a strong likelihood that there's not going to be a rematch. Then again, money talks. You never know. I mean, something crazy could happen, and somebody may say, you know what, we're putting up $250 million or something like that person, and next thing you know, money talks, right? So you never know. So look, we have to be clear on this one too. Terence Crawford has every right to retire. I mean, he is 39 years old, and he fought at the age of 38, I believe. If he wants to retire, he's got every right to retire. He's done everything that he had to do according to him. So we're just hearing Canelo's opinion and what Canelo has to say, but you also have to hear what Terence Crawford has to say as well too. And Terence, honestly, he doesn't owe anyone anything, right? I mean, Terence made it very, very clear when he retired that the most important thing to him right now is his health and his future, right? And look, legacies aren't necessarily built on rights. They're kind of built on perception. It's how we perceive what's happening in front of us. Especially when it comes to the fighters that we love and enjoy to watch on a day-to-day basis. But you have to understand, I think Terence has done what he's done and proved what he had to prove. And if he wants to retire, you have to give him that. You do. Right? So for him stepping away, immediately after beating Canelo Alvarez, he kind of preserved that win. But it also kind of freezes the conversation, I guess, to some degree, because now there's a lot of people who are debating whether or not or what would happen in a potential rematch scenario. But you have to understand, those same people that are talking about that, like you and I, are the same kind of folks that are going to talk about anything. We're going to talk about what would happen if Muhammad Ali took on Alexander Usyk, or what would happen if a prime Mike Tyson fought a prime Jake Paul. Obviously, things would be a lot different. I mean, we could sit there till the sky turns pink and blue. We could be blue in the face and debating and talking about all these different scenarios. So yeah, a lot of people are going to talk about what could have potentially happened in a rematch between Terence Crawford and Saul Alvarez. Yes, I mean, everything's up in the air when it comes to that. But look, no rematch means no definitive ending. No ending means that doubt is technically going to live in infamy. And so look, that's the trade-off, guys. That's the opportunity cost. And what makes this super, super wild for me and really interesting is what Canelo said next, is that He doesn't want tune-up fights. We know that. We've established that. Canelo's not that kind of guy. He wants to just fight the best of the best, and he doesn't want any easy fights, pure and simple. So don't give it to him. He wants championship pedigree fighters. That's what he wants. And that tells you this isn't bitterness. It's absolute pure motivation. This is a man who likes to challenge himself every opportunity he gets. And he'll take nothing less. So, Canelo isn't trying to chase comfort. Canelo is also not one to forget very easily. I think what he's after is wanting to chase validation. He wants to secure his legacy as being pound for pound the greatest fighter to have ever lived. And now, whether you agree with that or not, or whether you agree with Canelo and his thoughts, and that mindset honestly is just the thing that drives Canelo the most. That's what keeps his heart beating. That's what keeps him going. And in a sport that forgets very quickly what goes on, you got to respect that. All right? Look, Canelo isn't disputing the loss. He isn't disputing the ending. Canelo is not disputing the loss. And he's not disputing what happened, between him and Terence Crawford, and the fact that he wasn't 100% when going into that fight, but also takes full accountability and acknowledges the fact that he wasn't the better man, that Terence Crawford was the better man. But what he is disputing is the way this chapter has essentially ended between these two fighters, and how that chapter remains unfinished, unopened, almost like a novel that's ready to be finished so that it could go to publication, but it won't go to publication because that chapter in that novel remains unfinished. And so now, one of boxing's potentially biggest super fights or rematches may never ever come to fruition. But we did see an incredible boxing match between Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, and it will certainly be remembered for many, many generations to come. But unfortunately, there will be that stigma attached to this fight that it's not the finality of what we were able to witness. I think it's the conversation is going to really surround the fact that this fight never got settled properly, right? So anyhow, guys, look, this isn't about Canelo. This isn't about Crawford. This is really about how boxing remembers fights, and some wins age really nicely and gracefully, and others with a lot of debates, all right? So Crawford won the fight, pure and simple. Canelo is not disputing that. Canelo agrees with that. But Canelo truly believes in his heart that he lost the story. And in boxing, stories truly matter, okay? Almost as much as scorecards. And that's the way it is, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on this, and let me know what you guys think, how you guys see the fight, and what do you think? Do you think there is a possibility of these two guys coming back into the squared circle one more time? Anyways, guys, this weekend is fight weekend. There's a lot of different stuff that's going on. You got UFC Fight Night that's happening. That's going down at the Apex Meta Center in Las Vegas. It's going to feature none other than American Mario Batista is taking on Vinicius Oliveira. And in a bantamweight main event, guys, this is going to be crazy because Mario's 16-3-0, and he's only had one loss in his last 5 fights. And then Vinicius, he's won all of his last 5 fights, right? He's got a 23-3-0 record, and it's going to be a 5-round bantamweight bout. This is the main event, and the polling. Everyone's polling's got Batista favored in this one with a 64% in favor of him winning via submission. So that's going to be pretty fun to see. And then, so for all you guys who are betting, bet MGM, and you put your bets down, and let's see. Maybe we'll talk about this and kind of see where we're at with that. And then we also have bare knuckle boxing. We got former UFC great heavyweight Andrei Arlovsky. He steps into a chaotic situation against Ben Rothwell. And that's all happening, guys, at the Xfinity Center in Philadelphia on Saturday night. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, Andrei Arlovsky he's a madman, guys. You saw all that chaos that anyways, I don't want to talk about that right now. But guys, there's violence everywhere. There's chaos everywhere, guys. It's going to be a fun jam-packed weekend full of lots of storylines, I can assure you. So thanks again for sticking around, guys. If you guys like and hear what you see, if you like these breakdowns, Real Fight Talk, please smash a like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what you guys think about Canelo and Crawford, your opinions on that. Did Crawford secure his legacy, or did he leave unfinished business on the table? Anyways, guys, thank you again for your time. I will catch you on the next video.